In this video, I'm going to get straight to the point and keep it short. The point of this video is to kill the Richat structure theory once and for all. In previous videos, I acknowledged that the Eye of the Sahara is the second best candidate for the lost city of Atlantis, but for reasons I go into at length in the videos, it comes in a distant second place to the feature that is being shown in the image on the bottom right corner of this slide, which I call the Eye of the Atlantic. The coordinates are also shown and are linked in the description to this video. Plato provides us with numerous clues in his two dialogues as to the location and nature of Atlantis, but the most important clue is the structure and layout of the capital city itself, which is described as a series of concentric rings. Not only does Plato describe the overall layout of the capital city, he provides exact dimensions in the units of stadia, which is a Greek unit of measure that is equivalent to 0.1136 miles. Considered the other way around, 1 mile is equivalent to 8.8 Greek stadia. Where the Richat structure falls short as the best candidate for the lost city of Atlantis is that the formation only matches the description provided by Plato thereof in the qualitative sense, that is, the Richat structure indeed is clearly made up of features that resemble concentric rings, but the widths of the rings don't line up with Plato's measurements. However, as I will show, the feature being shown in this slide matches Plato's description of the city of Atlantis both in its overall shape and in the dimensions of each of the rings, and more besides, to a remarkable degree of precision. There are two passages in the Critias, one of the two dialogues in which Plato discusses Atlantis, that describe the city. Passage 1 describes the city's overall layout from a big picture perspective, while passage 2 provides the measurements of each of the concentric rings. I've highlighted or underlined the most important parts of each of the two passages. Passage 1 describes 2 zones or rings of land and 3 of water, alternating from water to land, each being circular, enclosing a central island which is described in passage 2 as having a diameter of 5 stadia. Passage 2 also goes on to describe the breadths of each of the zones of land, of water and land. The information in this passage is represented in the diagram to the bottom left, with the ring of land and water being colored blue and yellow, respectively. The widths of each of these rings are shown in the diagram. The widths of the rings of water are underlined in blue, and the widths of the rings of land are underlined in orange. These widths, starting from the outermost ring, are 3, 3, 2, 2, and 1 stadia, with the central island having a diameter of 5 stadia and hence a radius of 2.5 stadia. We can then calculate the distance from the center of the overall city to each of the successive rings by adding the widths of all of the rings that are inside the ring in question to arrive at the numbers of 2.5, 3.5, 5.5, 7.5, 10.5, and 13.5 stadia. Finally, converting these measurements in stadia to miles using the conversion factor of 1 mile being equivalent to 8.8 stadia gives us the corresponding measurements in miles of 0.284, 0.395, 0.625, 0.852, 1.193, and 1.534 miles, respectively. In this and in the next 5 slides, I will show that these distances in miles as shown in the figure to the bottom left match to a high degree of precision with the distances as shown in the images in the bottom right, with each slide extending the measurement out by 1 additional ring. In each of the 6 slides, I will extend a double-headed green arrow from the measurement in the figure to the corresponding distance of the feature as measured in Google Earth. In this first slide, there is a clear match between the corresponding measurements. In the second slide, again, there is a close match between the two measurements, with the distances in the diagram and the image being 0.284 and 0.28 miles, respectively. I wish to emphasize that I did not simply pick and choose the start and end points of a line in Google Earth to fit the measurements shown in the diagram to the left, but made sure to use the same point as the center for each of the slides to follow, and also to define the edge of each of the rings at the radial distances where the shading alternated from a darker shade of blue to a lighter shade and vice versa. This choice of distances at which I made my measurements will be clearly seen in the following slides. In the third slide, once again, there is a close match between the two measurements, with the distances in the diagram and the image being 0.395 and 0.41 miles, respectively. As can be seen in the image to the right, I chose to make this measurement at a radial distance where the shading of the rings changes from darker to lighter. In the fourth slide, once again, there is a close match between the two measurements, with the distances in the diagram and the image being 0.625 and 0.62 miles, respectively. As can be seen in the image once again, I chose to make this measurement at a radial distance where the shading of the rings changes from darker to lighter. In the fourth slide, yet again, there is a close match between the two measurements, with the distances in the diagram and the image being 0.852 and 0.85 miles, respectively, and again, the measurement was taken where the shading of the ring changed from darker to lighter. In the fifth slide, again, there is a close match between the two measurements, with the distances in the diagram and the image being 1.193 and 1.19 miles, respectively, and again, the measurement was taken where the shading of the ring changed from darker to lighter. In the fifth, there is a close match between the two measurements, with the distances in the diagram and the image being 1.534 and 1.53 miles. To conclude, the dimensions of the feature shown in the Google Earth screenshots are a near-perfect match with the dimensions of the capital city of Atlantis as stated by Plato, and as represented in the figure to the bottom left. This constitutes evidence beyond reasonable doubt that the feature represented in the screenshots is the lost city of Atlantis as described by Plato.